This podcast provides a platform for our guests to share their experiences and inspire our listeners to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. As you listen, we invite you to explore how these concepts apply to your own story. You know what to do. Be great and be grateful. We're mic'd up with Mike DiCioccio. Hey guys, we're back in action and you guys are in for a treat today. My guest has a special passion for empowering and serving business leaders, entrepreneurs, sales executives, coaches, authors, speakers, and countless other professionals as he takes their businesses and their lives to peak prosperity. He's been featured on CBS, NBC, ABC, and Fox. Welcome to the show, Christopher Salem.
Hey, Mike, it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I know it's been difficult to lock this in and you got a lot going on. So thanks for sharing this moment with myself and my audience.
It's a pleasure to be here.
When did you have that moment where you realized you had a unique gift for helping others? And again, we talked about reaching prosperity. Was that something that like a light bulb went off and you knew that there was that level that you just
it's funny that you say that, Mike. I mean, I think it's something I've had for a long time, but I minimized it due to my own limited beliefs about myself and where my level of confidence and self-esteem was, 30, but when up till the point I was 30 years old. So I always knew I had some kind of intuitive nature to really kind of identify where the issues were, in people or situations. But because of my own limited beliefs and own issues at the time, up to the age of 30, I kind of just didn't really nurture it. I kind of minimized it and kind of pushed it to the side. But it's something I pretty much have known my whole life. But it wasn't until I went through this process that I'm happy to talk about today. And then really where it came full circle after that transformation that I began to embrace it. And it really aligned with everything that was true to who I was and why I do what I do to help others help themselves.
So would you say you almost reflected on your own experiences, saw the arc of your own success, and then realized, hey, I did this for myself. I would love to do this for other people?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something, again, that I was able to tap into now, that intuitive side that I've always knew I had, but again, I suppressed it. Mm-hmm. And to now merge that skill or that strength with that, what I learned through my own experience to help others do the same for themselves.
I love it. So if you're tuning in right now, you guys can check out Chris. His website is Christopher Salem, which is SALEM.com. He's turned his business into a personal brand. He's helped out numerous companies from every level to one employee up to hundreds or even thousands of employees?
Yeah, I'd say 1,000 or less. Yeah.
Yeah, and a keynote speaker, highly successful, has a phenomenal network. You guys can check him out on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and I'm going to put his handles up here so everybody can tune into that. Now, your expansive career, it spans over 25 years. You've sold media, aircraft, quite a range in products, right? You've also invested in businesses and implemented residual income platforms at your core. When you talk about, think about yourself, right? At your core, what are you most passionate about?
Well, I mean, all those things are great accomplishments, right? To set a success foundation. But, I consider my greatest accomplishment being try to be the best possible husband and father that I can be, because all of these values and principles that I exhibit in the success of my businesses since I went through this transformation roughly a little over 20 years ago are all things that I also direct into my day-to-day life as a husband, as a friend, and of course, as a father. And this is obviously what led me to start a nonprofit called Empowered Fathers in Action. So it's those values and principles about why I do what I do that I incorporate into my day-to-day life to really be a better father, better husband each and every day.
Now, I did a lot of homework leading up to this. I don't want to sound like I wasn't prepared, but I didn't know that you were doing that nonprofit, Empowered Fathers in Action. Tell us more about that.
Well, Empowered Fathers in Action is a 501c3 organization originally dedicated to strengthening the father-son bonding process, showing dads how they could step up to be more instrumental in their children's development, not only sons, but also daughters. But soon, maybe about 6 months to a year after we were in operation, we kind of were addressing families. So we're all about creating interdependent family structures in terms of behavioral modification with getting to the root cause of limited beliefs, helping to improve communication, shifting them from codependent to interdependent behaviors, and then leading by example. And then if we can create interdependent family structures, that will lend itself to more interdependent communities and then interdependent business. Prosperity, whatever that definition means to you, is built upon flow, harmony. It's never going to be perfect, but yet when we can operate from a place of interdependency, starting in the home and then outward, that's where we can really all thrive and collaborate rather than compete against one another.
Man, there's a lot there that I love. First and foremost, talk about how everybody's maybe definition of prosperity is different, and success, right, can mean many different things to many people. And also, what I love about that is obviously I'm a dad myself. I have a beautiful 5-year-old daughter, Isabel, and I know, like, I always, a lot of times, I'm reflecting on that as what my influence looks like in her life. And even at 5 years old, we're even having some conversations where we're talking about some big picture things. And it's cool to see her beginning to understand there's more out there than simply her toys and her books and stuff like that. And, little bit at a time, planting those seeds, right? But being instrumental in her, in her growth, right? In her mindset as she gets older. So I totally relate to that, but I'd like to, let's take it one more layer further. So are you actually coaching fathers in that program, or is it somewhere that they simply go and get resources? What does it actually look like?
Well, it's a combination, Mike, but yeah, in essence, I'm taking the methodologies and processes that I use with my executive coaching with individuals and groups, and now applying it more in a personal way, because I do that personally for my executive coaching clients. So it's either, either we do that direct, either myself with somebody or a group of people. We also have a facilitator program where we train the trainer, meaning that people go through our certification process to be trained on this methodology, to actually become that methodology so they can truly experience it, and then go out there and bring that into their communities, whether if it's at a community organization, to families direct, to businesses in the area, and schools as well. We have curriculum for schools that we do as part of after school activities.
Yeah, that's great, man. So I'll put that up there. What's the website?
It's called EFAmovement.org.
EFAmovement.org. Awesome. And here's the thing: when I was looking at your, what you've been up to as far as how you help out individuals and getting them to peak performance and peak prosperity, one of the items that stood out to me was that you focus on the root cause. And I can tell you, I don't want this to be too much about me, but I can share a story that, I had to overcome some adversity in my life in the last 2 to 3 years personally. And I always felt like whenever I was going in to seek help, they were talking about the current state of the situation or why it is the way it is. A lot of finger pointing I felt like was being had, and root cause was not something that was discussed very often. And so enlighten us on how important it is to dig deeper and how that can truly make an impact. Because I personally know you can't really fix something over here if the root of it over here isn't really being looked at. So I personally get it, but share more on how that all connects.
Well, it's so true, Mike. I mean, again, we've been conditioned, and we live in a society where we manage problems, right? The pharmaceutical industry makes billions of dollars a year managing symptoms. And unfortunately, businesses, families, organizations, religious institutions, schools, whatever you want to, it could be anybody. They all, for the most part, unfortunately, manage the problem. It's like putting a Band-Aid on things. Let's manage the symptoms, and we can still operate. We can still be efficient in some way, but we're never going to be where we could be if we addressed it at the root cause. See, the thing about the root cause is it's a personal thing. we have to take responsibility for that, whether if it's the individual for themselves or even as a group, if you're in an organization, that we each have to take responsibility to get to that root cause. Because unless we are able to eradicate it at the source and truly release it, we're never truly going to come up with a true solution that could, not only build it, but sustain that going forward. So when you have other challenges and setbacks, we don't look at it more as the problem anymore. We look at it as part of the process to the solution that we're embraced in. So
right.
Those are things how we learn and grow, no matter if it's a negative or positive situation.
Similar to anything, building a home or structure, you need that foundational level. And
You need
if
a
the
foundation. You can have a beautiful home, but it'll come crumbling down if you have a faulty foundation.
Or a tree, right? Talking about roots, right? Root cause. That bad boy is going to come without strong roots. It's coming down in a windstorm, right? And so I always looked at it as if you don't address that and you start to fix and put paint, just start to paint the home or whatever. And it looks on the surface like things are getting better, but those roots are still a concern. Eventually it's turmoil hits and it's coming down. And that's what I experienced in my life, that anytime I didn't handle the root cause, you think things are looking good and you can get blindsided by it. Or it's just
I've been there.
Gotta get real with yourself.
Times.
Gotta get real with yourself, right? So here's the deal, talking about getting real with yourself, and I appreciate you sharing this with us and a little bit with myself off camera. But the more I do study successful entrepreneurs, the common thread that I see among them is that they've overcome massive adversity, major setbacks in their lives. Your story, I noticed, also has a road to recovery, including 12 years of addiction and battling demons. Can you share that struggle with us? And most importantly for our audience, how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of time, this is where my root cause came in. I'll explain this whole process where this may help a lot of people out there that might be struggling in some aspect of their life and business. So again, I grew up, in a family that was, for the most part, dysfunctional. And I had a wonderful mother. Don't get me wrong. I mean, both my parents were great people. And my mother was great. And I can look back and say all the great things that she did. But, when I was growing up, my father was not emotionally or oftentimes not physically present. He was off traveling. His goal in life was to become successful. He grew up poor, and his mission in life was to be, start a business and be ultra successful. That was just something that it was, in his blood. Now, as you know, when you embark on certain types of endeavors like that, there are going to be sacrifices. And unfortunately, my dad sacrificed those golden years, so to speak, when, your children are developing and growing. Myself and my brother, I have a younger brother who's 2 or 3 years, almost 3 years younger. And we grew up with really no direction. We didn't have a father figure. My mother, wore both hats and did the best she possibly could. But the reality is that, especially with boys, that a mother can't play the father role to the level that is going to be healthy and instrumental in that young man or young boy's development. As a result of that, I grew up with no direction. I grew up where I was constantly seeking validation in others. And while I looked the part and played the part, I truly had what came from a place of a very low level of self-esteem and self-confidence. And as a reflection of that played out in a lot of my behavior in terms of how I handled relationships. And oftentimes I would sabotage great situations because of that lack of self-esteem and confidence. So again, how did I experience all this? I experienced it through anger. So every day of my life, I had anger, and it would just keep growing and growing and growing. And as with anything, when we experience certain types of negative emotions like anger, shame, guilt, jealousy, envy, or any combination thereof, it reaches a point where sometimes we have to escape. We're looking for something to solve it. We're looking for something to make it go away. And the thing is reality is nothing is going to make it go away unless you take ownership of it from within. However, I didn't know that at the time. Sure. So the way that I tried to escape was through alcohol, drugs, sex, any combination thereof. I wasn't addicted to just alcohol, or it really, as a matter of fact, my true addiction wasn't alcohol, drugs or sex. That was not the addictions. Those were just the channels that I chose to escape and medicate. See, my true addiction was the hunger, the thirst for validation that I could never get. So what happens when you are seeking validation, you don't hold yourself in high regard. You're seeking that approval from outside of you. And when you do that, you put high expectations onto other people that go unfulfilled. And then when that goes unfulfilled, you get angry or whatever how you experience it. And that's how I experienced, my addiction. It was through anger. So it was like I was addicted to, the need for validation, and I experienced that through anger. And then I medicated it through those different areas that I talked about, drugs, alcohol, sex.
Well, I'm not a medical professional or anything, but I know there's like a dopamine hit there, right? And probably
there's a dopamine hit either way. Anger sometimes can be a high. I used to get an adrenaline hit off of being angry. I mean, I loved hard, heavy metal music. I loved high energy. It was a high. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, it just led to a lot of bad behavior, a lot of, failed relationships. And of course I sabotaged, a lot of good opportunities early on in my career. I mean, I had a great work ethic, but yet I would sabotage it because of this quest for validation. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where it was coming from, but even with 2 near-death experiences from alcohol poisoning in my 20s, that wasn't the wake-up call. The wake-up call for me was my father. And my father was diagnosed with cancer when I was just turning 30 years old. And my dad's cancer came on very sudden, and it was like stage 4 within 1 week of the diagnosis. That's how quick it was. So my dad didn't last. My dad only lasted 4 months, and he was gone. But it was during that time that I began to kind of it was like the aha moment. It was the moment of clarity for the first time in my life, because I never had clarity. I also didn't mention I have ADHD, and ADHD was also not a good thing to have especially when you're dealing with anger, and because I never had clarity, this was the first time I had clarity that I realized that if my life is going to change for the better, I have to take ownership no matter what has happened to me. Mm-hmm. Now, my brother was far worse. My brother became a full-blown drug addict, heroin. To this day, he's mentally ill. My mother takes care of him. He never had a normal life. Again, worse off than my situation as a result of my father. Because when my father was present, he was emotionally and verbally abusive. Now, with that being said, my dad, I remember looking at me in the eyes, even when he couldn't speak, because he was on morphine, but I could read his eyes looking at me and saying, "Don't become like me." And he realized if I could do it all over again, I would have never sacrificed my family. I would have been there for you and your brother. And I'm sorry. That was just the message I was getting.
Yeah.
And what I came to realize after was that my dad could not be the father he wanted, that I desired him to be, to seek that validation, because he never had it grown up himself. He was alienated by his father, my grandfather. He never felt like he belonged. So how can you be something that you don't know?
Right.
So I didn't know that. So that was an aha moment.
Yeah.
You can't give what you don't have.
Right.
So when I was able to take ownership of the fact that I had to do something about it, I didn't know how I was going to go about doing it. I adopted a meditation and yoga. And as a result of that, through also a 12-step program, I was able to find a process that allowed me to get to the root cause of my own demons or limited beliefs that drove my behavior, the way I handled relationships, and the way I made decisions, and the way that I would sabotage certain things. Mm-hmm. And obviously the root cause to my limited beliefs was my father. I had to forgive my father, and not only forgive him from every cell in my body, but I had to forgive myself, more importantly, to let go. And to know that until I could let that go, that anger that I experienced every day would always have power over me to control me. And once I was able to release that, it wasn't easy. It took time. And through meditation and journaling. Meditation and journaling were the two habits that got me out of the problem and into the solution.
Wow.
It allowed my subconscious mindset for the first time to reveal the things that were the limited beliefs that were causing these patterns of dysfunction, codependency, and sabotaging myself. So I began to see it because I was writing. I was just writing whatever came to mind. I wasn't over analyzing, overthinking it. And when I was able to truly forgive and move on, I began to adopt other habits. The meditation and journaling. I began to wake up at 4:15 in the morning every morning. I began to make my bed in the morning. I began to read a chapter or two out of a personal or professional development book. I began a consistent exercise program. Now, I was still working out, don't get me wrong, but I kind of refined it in a way that was even healthier for me, not the other way around where I was really abusing my body. And as a result of that, I found harmony for the first time in my life. And I began to really, be able to really identify who I was, like what was the why behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really in alignment with my true values and principles. And I was from that success foundation that I had with those habits that became patterns, coupled with the values and principles, I was able to create a lifestyle that I planned for. So I planned out my life from there on out for the rest of my life. I said, this is the stuff I'm doing every day for the rest of my life. I don't know all the things I'll be doing that will lead to my success, but I'll write down what I know, and that intelligence will come later to connect the dots. So I had a specific detailed life and business strategy that I developed.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, over time, I was able to reach milestones and accomplish a lot of things, not only financially, but also in my career, also as a loyal husband, a father, and all these other things that I do other than just, business. And am I a perfect individual? Absolutely not. Do I make mistakes? Sure. But I don't look at them as mistakes. I look at them as part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
So I live my life and do business from a place of giving without expectation, receiving without resistance. And as a result of that, that has not only changed the quality of my life, but it has impacted and helped others to change their lives in business for those that I've worked with over the years as an executive coach, and what I'm currently doing right now on a personal level with Empowered Fathers in Action.
That is so amazing. I got more notes here in just the last 5 minutes than probably.
I hope I didn't go on too long there, but
No, I mean it out of respect for all my other guests, but I just personally what I took away there, away from that, and anyone who's listening to this, go back and listen to that one more time. Get your notepad out. Waking up at 4:15 in the morning, making your bed, which basically you're triggering your brain. I just successfully completed a task, as small as that might sound.
You nailed it right there. That's exactly what it is.
You're reading maybe a chapter, maybe
chapter 2. Yep.
Chapter 2. Boom, done with that. Now, I'm not sure what point this was in your life. Were you in your 20s or 30s at this point?
I was 30 years old when this transformation took place. I'm 50. I'm 52 right now, so I've been doing this for 22 years, roughly.
I'm not trying to date you or make you sound like you're older than you are, but right now with social media, phones, and emails, it's really hard to wake up and not get distracted, right? It's not an excuse, but it is definitely a challenge. So you're up at 4:15. You made your bed. You're reading a chapter or two. You're exercising. You're journaling before.
Yeah, I meditate, journal right after I make my bed, and then I go exercise, and then I come back, I shower, I eat breakfast, and then I read a chapter or two out of a personal development book, and then I start my day.
Basically every day.
Every day, 7 days a week, I do that, and of course on weekends I'm not doing all the work related stuff, but that success foundation, that pattern of habits that we just talked about, I do every day.
So before, let's say 7 o'clock in the morning, you've done more than 50% of the people have done in their.
I've already gotten all that stuff out of the way, and I've already at that point have already started working, meaning that I'm addressing the priorities that matter first. More likely in that case, I'll be doing things where, of course, I'm not coaching people at that hour, so I'm doing things that don't require me to be talking to someone. So it's more. Maybe I'm preparing a presentation for a company training that I'm doing, or I'm preparing something for a keynote speech that I'm doing, or for a client that I'm going to be working with one-on-one for that day. Then during the core business hours, I'm coaching, I'm doing trainings, addressing the things that really matter, the priorities that add value and make a difference in my business.
You're smartly utilizing your time. You could read at 5 o'clock in the morning because it's not a time you're expecting a call or making a call. It's
value
yeah.
your time, not manage time, value
Your time. And it's funny because a couple of questions ahead here, you just nailed it. So what are the best habits that you feel a person can implement to drive themselves closer to prosperity in life and in business? I know you just answered a few of them, but can you elaborate?
I would say that you could find your own success foundation, but these are the two that have to be part, like the anchor of anybody that is going to develop their own success foundation, whatever that means to them. It is meditation and journaling. It is the two habits coupled together that not only will help you to get to the root cause of your limited beliefs and challenges, but it also is the same two that will help you to create the solution that will get to your why, that will also get you clear on your true values and principles, that you can create your value statement to build your business, your brand, your level of influence, your character, your confidence, your whatever.
So good. So good. Number one, meditation, which I've been doing over the last, I'd say, year. Meditation and prayer is how I like to start my day. And gratitude. Think of at least 3 things. I try to alternate them so it's not always the same thing, but I'm not saying you can't have the same 3 things every day, but I try to mix it up so my mind is actually, because I read this too, the state, talk about dopamine, the state of being in gratitude, I've learned medically, you can't fake it basically. So when you're actually in gratitude, thinking of something you're in a full appreciation of, good, bad, or ugly, and you have gratitude for that moment, the way your body is feeling in that moment, you can't be stressed out or fearful in that exact moment. Whatever that, I don't know if that's dopamine in that moment as well, but basically you cannot fake that. And if you do, you're just basically going through the motions, which is never good. So meditate, gratitude. Journaling is something I always haven't, like as new school as I am with technology and social media and everything. I am kind of an old soul with things.
Well, that's
write
the way
it down and learn.
I'm a firm believer in writing it down. There's power of writing. Because here's the thing, when you're journaling, you're not saying, okay, what am I going to write about? Because then you're thinking you're thinking about it. Like, oh, I'm going to write about, no, that's not what you do. The key about journaling, you can journal outside of this and do something else with journaling. But this part of the journaling with meditation is simply when you've come out of a meditation, you are just writing whatever comes to mind. It could be one word, it could be a sentence, it could be 5 paragraphs. You just write, because what happens is the subconscious mind over time, when you get in sync with that, it will reveal things. So you'll start writing things down that you're like, what is this? I don't even know, this doesn't even make any sense, or I can't figure this out. You don't need to. You could go back later and then it will all begin to make sense. So you begin to see what is really limiting you, or where the areas that you can make corrections to make improvements in your life and business.
Totally agree. I mean, I do benefit from writing it down because I'm thinking about it, actually writing it and reading it as I'm writing it. But the thing I have maybe need to work on is going back and actually reading my notes. So I don't journal the way you're talking about. I take notes for phone calls and interviews and game planning the day, or I'll work on a presentation, and first I'll write it in my book and then I'll make it look good in a presentation. But so tell us about, how powerful it is to go back and do you read it at the end of the day? You look through your daily note, or
what I do is I tend to, when I'm doing my goals for the next day, I will look at it and just try to figure out what this means. And I never force myself, so it's not like I'm sitting there going, okay, could it be this? Again, I look at it, I think about it, and then I let it go. If it doesn't register right away, no big. I go back, I can look at it again and read over the last 5 days. And eventually, because I've been doing it a long time, it does come to you. And then you
Do you,
realize, oh,
do you write your goals out every morning and every night? I've heard that.
every like around six, just before 6 o'clock or just after dinner for the next day. Yes.
Cool.
Now there's certain things I already know I'm going to do every day, right? I already know that I'm going to wake up at 4:15. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to journal. I'm going to do some of the other things I talk. So I can just put that on a calendar or an app or whatever way you're tracking it for the rest of my life, as long as I'm breathing here on this planet.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're in a more regular, like by the end of the day, you're naturally tired and ready to go to sleep because your body knows at 4:15.
I'm usually in bed no later than 9:30 in the evening. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I need to flip this whole thing. I'm doing it all wrong. I'm up working late almost every day, and I do struggle in the morning. And look, I actually read Lewis House's book. I love Lewis House. I forget the name of it. I think it might be Millionaire Morning, as simple as that. And this isn't news to me, but it's just like, when you learn something, you got to roll it out. You got to do it, And I've been getting up earlier than I have in the past, but still, I'm admitting to not just get up, to do those action items with rhythm, right? So I read every day, I meditate every day, but it's like not always at the same set time. And I think that would help me by the time I'm ready to roll into phone calls and emails and everything, to really have that done instead of feeling like I'm cutting it short because I know I have to do this podcast.
Yeah,
or this
it becomes a routine. It becomes a
routine
pattern.
is huge.
You get into a flow to be really laser focused on the priorities that matter. This way you offset, procrastination, because procrastination, all it is, even when you're busy, you're procrastinating. There are a lot of busy people, but they're not productive. It's procrastination. Procrastination is simply a byproduct of worry, and worry is a byproduct of anxiety, and anxiety is simply the byproduct of fear from the past projected into the future of something that hasn't happened, but you assume it will. That leads to a level of anxiety. You experience it through worry, and then that leads to procrastination. That's the pattern.
I have no idea how I'm going to edit this interview down to 4 quality minutes for my promo. This whole thing, it's a 60-minute promo, man. You're dropping gold over here. Go back and listen to that again as well, guys. Let's get into business now and talk about the most important, in your opinion, and you've evaluated a lot of different businesses. In your opinion, what's the most important component, if you had to narrow it down to one thing?
Well, again, I mean, for me, there's a lot of different, but for me, you always have to start from a place of integrity.
Sure.
And the reason why is that you are never going to be everything for everyone. And when you can be true to your values and principles and come from integrity, sometimes when you say, hey, I'd love to help you, but I feel that someone would better serve you, you're coming from a place of integrity. So again, it comes back to the give without expectation, receive without resistance. Yes, somebody might say, well, you're giving your business away. Why would you do that? You could probably still help them, sure, but I know they could be served even better by someone that's better suited for their situation. Because I don't know when, I don't know where it's coming from, but I know that it'll happen at some point, that it will come back. And usually it's with a situation that's better aligned to why I do what I do best and my strengths, not my weaknesses, to have a better experience. And then it ends up everyone wins. So it's that's important to me. And then again, is being consistent, and really always comes down to relationships that you nurture with yourself and then with other people. Everything is a byproduct of those relationships that you have.
Mm-hmm. Integrity, building quality relationships, and consistency.
Yeah.
Three more golden nuggets for the note takers out there. I know you're a baseball fan. We're going to talk about it. Spring training is alive and well right now, except if you're a Yankees fan like I am, because Severino's not looking like he's going to be a go at the start of the year. So talking about baseball, I just thought of the analogy, which I make a lot of sports analogies on the show. You're talking about, being laser focused on almost your superpower, what you're great at, and just honing in on that. That's going to allow you to be the best business consultant. If you're hired to be a business consultant, how can you laser focus that? So baseball, shortstop, he's out there being the best shortstop. You don't want him playing first, left, right. You don't want him catching, right? You want him to be the best shortstop. You certainly don't want your pitcher playing all the positions too, right? He's told to go out there and pitch 99 and paint the corners, right? Or whatever it might be. Maybe he's a knuckleballer. My point is, when you have a team and it's a business that you have a team, you have people that are great in accounting. You don't maybe want that person as your top sales rep. Your sales rep, I know this from experience, we're not always the most organized folks, right? So you have different people and tools in place to allow for success. I don't want to speak for you, but do you agree with that summary of stay in your lane?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer. We can't always. I mean, it's okay to be cross-trained in other areas and fill the gaps when needed, but you don't want to be one of those people that's always doing that, because if you're focused on things that you're not good at versus the things that you are, now you're not going to be of value, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to be put into positions where we can really play to our strengths and our skills that maximize that value. So yes, we're going to be, if we can be put in, in this case, if you're a shortstop and that's what you're really good at, you got the arm for it, you can make all the catches from backhand in front, then obviously that's the position you have to be at. Putting that person at first base, it's not going to be the answer. So, especially with an arm like that. So again, this can apply to any situation in your business. This can apply to your, a company. That, we have to do our best to align people based upon not only skills and strengths, but also values and principles where people will thrive. So, the key is to do our best to offset, those weaknesses with the strengths. So if one person's good here, but not good here, but the other person's good here and not good here, then we can make it more effective in an interdependent way versus a codependent way. So, it avoids all the finger pointing and improves communications. So it's not assuming, speculating. It's more specific, clear, paraphrasing, reframing, whatever you want to call it. And then obviously that leads to, better results, higher productivity, efficiency, profitability.
Yeah, I think a more effective team would have diversity on it with superpowers instead of 6 people that are all great salespeople. Now, of course, you'd organize them together and call them your sales team, right? And have them effectively give them tasks that they're going to be great at, right? But if you're looking at a big picture of the organization, you want the diversity in, operations, sales, HR, the whole thing has to all click. And so I want to go to that level of talking about a business. And one of the most important things, and I think one of the most difficult things today, is retention. So an organization brings in this all-star. How do they keep them? Because there's so many opportunities out there. There's a lot of solopreneurs like myself who do well somewhere and then they want to create their own thing. How does a company keep a great employee?
Well, how you keep a great employee, again, is empowering them to maximize those strengths and skills, and putting them in situations to do that. Yes, money is a motivator, right? But yet, if you could create challenges and opportunities, or challenges that become even more of an opportunity, and recognize that person, okay, not just praising him or her to praise them, but recognizing them for their efforts, thanking them, and being specific to the things that they're very good at, that type of thing. When you can develop a really good recognition program, an engagement program where you improve the communications, you come from a place of leading by example rather than telling people how, when, or why to do it. Those are the things that are going to help people want to stay somewhere. So it's not all about, oh God, I can make more money here. It's really that this is important to me. This environment is very healthy and more conducive to my growth than if I go somewhere else where I have to deal with, these other things that are not here. Yeah, yes, I know I'll make more money, but how long is that? Is that going to be sustainable if I'm burned out? Mm-hmm. No. So these are the things that will help to, raise retention. And then obviously that lowers onboarding costs, training, and, all these other expenses associated with that.
Yeah, it comes down to relationships you mentioned again. And then
leading by example.
Yeah.
All these different, I can spend another hour talking about each of them.
Right. But to kind of, add on to what you said. I love that response, and I totally agree with it. Personally, I've experienced that. I say relationships, meaning that, upper management, they need to, on the way down, have an understanding of what's important to each person at each puzzle piece of the company. Because if you simply think someone's money driven and you just keep trying to give them raises and throw some incentives at them and spiffs, but their whole thing is, they hate needing to come in on Saturday because they're missing every soccer practice, but you don't know that because you didn't ask the right questions, and maybe they just could stay later on a Thursday and give you the same performance. But now you actually have a happy employee who's performing at the same or higher level. You didn't know that because you didn't ask the questions. Hey, what's going on? How you doing? How can we better serve you? So it's totally relationships, listening, understanding, and
Yeah,
like you said, developing, because great people want to keep going.
Is so important. Relating, listening, understand is critical
Mm-hmm.
in every aspect of this.
And they need to have that developmental stage too, because if someone feels like they maxed out, that's a go-getter doesn't want to max out and be told that there is nowhere else for you to go. There's got to be other levels to achieve. I want to talk about, and I know we're running out of time here, but I for my audience's sake and my sake as well here, I want to learn more. You have 6 businesses going on, right? And you volunteer at 2 organizations. One of which is the one that you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Say it again.
Empowered Fathers in Action, EFA movement.
Empowered Fathers. Okay, so you have that. What's the other organization?
Well, I have my executive coaching for individuals and also for groups. I also do corporate trainings.
Unbelievable. 6 businesses.
Speeches. Yes. I also have some residual income from some direct marketing, sources. And then also I have a private lending business. So I lend money to certain select businesses. I'm also kind of can connect certain other people looking for money to some even bigger things through some of my partners. So I have that. And then I'm also an angel investor. So I work with angel investors, and I work with startups and helping them to really get true to their values and principles, so that their decks and their presentations can reflect that to make the right connections to raise money. So I'm a pitch evaluator also with Pitch Live out of Arizona with Kevin Harrington, and then also with America's Real Deal, which is out of Salt Lake City, Utah.
Kevin Harrington, the original shark?
The original shark.
Cool. Man, it sounds like you got a lot of time to kick your feet up. And
Not really. I mean, my time is like, again, that morning, right? When I work out, that's my time. That's my time. That 3 hour, if you want to call it 3 hour gap, that's my time. Mm-hmm. The rest of the time's for my clients, my wife, my son, and other people that are important, in my life.
So I always like to have my guests share how they balance, because most of the people I'm interviewing are doing a lot of, between business and some personal, whether it's nonprofits or, like you said, coaching baseball, things like that. It's pretty common among the people that I'm interested in learning more from. They have all these things going on. The average millionaire has 6 to 7 streams of income, right? So how do you balance that? Because the first thing you said that I absolutely love, my biggest takeaway from this, and I have it circled on here, right? What's the cost of sacrifice? I circled that on here.
Yeah.
Talking about your son. So how do you balance being great at 6 businesses, coaching baseball, having the father's program, and your own family?
Well, I mean, there's always going to be give and take. Now, fortunately for me, that I was able to establish that success before and when my son was very little, so as he began to grow older, I had already a lot of that, it was kind of like had been built a while ago, and we had a system moving along, right?
Cool.
So it wasn't that learning curve wasn't there like it was. With that being said, it's still, I have to strike harmony, right? So the key is, like, you think of a seesaw. Seesaw is never going to have perfect balance. Mm-hmm. This is your life. This is your business. Sometimes if you're building a business, it's going to be you're going to have to sacrifice a little here, and vice versa. The key is you don't want to be one extreme to the other. you want to be teetering. And that's where, if you can find harmony there, and I call it the 8 pillars of wellness: social, emotional, physical, spiritual, financial, occupational, intellectual, and environmental. When we can strike harmony, now we can experience that prosperity and well-being more in a healthy way versus in an unhealthy way, because it can go one extreme to the other.
Mm-hmm. You have it mapped out, you have it planned out, and obviously the third component is you execute on those 8
The only thing I don't plan for or is when I go to the bathroom. But but my wife feels that I have even that down pat. So I mean, I that's the only thing I can't plan for.
There's not an app for that yet.
No. But I always say that, not only jokingly, but it is the truth. That's the only thing I don't plan for.
Yeah, that's funny. Hey, I always like to put a big bow on the episode, and unfortunately, I can't believe we blew through almost an hour already of great material in here and content. Again, thank you for doing this and being here for my audience. If you can give one message to them, leaving them inspired to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams, which is my mission statement for this show, what would that be?
Well, I would say that, again, that your success is an inside-out job. No one is going to do it for you. There's no cookie cutter system out there that's going to be the magic bullet in making you successful. Are there great products and services and great coaches and mentors? Absolutely. And you should take advantage of them, but don't count on them 100%. That's going to lead to your success. It's got to come from you. So for instance, I have a methodology. Could I apply it to all of my clients? Sure. Is it going to be in the same way? No. Because if I did it the same way, maybe out of 10 people, 1 might have success and the other 9 may not have that level of success, because their values and principles are different. Their strengths and weaknesses are different. Their situations are different. So the only way that's going to work is that you do your end of the bargain, and let the things that you can't control, that's your higher power, that's the resources that we're talking about here, to do its thing. That the way you can make it, customized to you, your process to make it work. That is the secret to sustainable success.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
When you're coaching someone, you're giving them all the tools, you're giving them the one-on-one accountability, the roadmap, the examples, the mirroring success.
Yeah, I'm giving the methodology, but we're customizing it to who they are. Not that, okay, this is one size fits all, and if it worked for me, it's going to work for everybody else. No, that doesn't work that way.
And at the end of the day, you provide all of that. They still need to get up and do it, right? And
they have to do it. Yeah, that's the thing that a lot of people think. If I go to a Tony Robbins event, when I leave, I'm going to be successful. Well, nothing against Tony. Tony's awesome, and his programs are awesome, but the reality is only a small percentage actually will do something and take what they've learned to apply to their situations and what's good for them to make it happen. Most will follow it verbatim, won't take ownership of it, just will rely upon the principles of what it's saying, and then often just are right back in the same place where they started. And that's
I think the best part of those events are being a sponge, learning from great people, like the mastermind concept that Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
Love that book. And get around great people. And I love how he talks about one of the things you were talking about earlier is staying in your lane and focusing on your superpower. Henry Ford, great example. He was actually kind of mocked. Did you read Think and Grow Rich? I'm guessing that was.
Oh yeah, I've read it many times.
Sure. They were mocking him. He wasn't a scholar, I guess, right? So he wasn't highly educated. I forget what level he gets to, but he was brought in front of a board, I believe, and questioned. And his response to the question was, instead of him actually answering it or showing that he didn't know the answer, it was like a general history question. He said, "Look, I got this guy here. He's my go-to for history. This is my go-to, math guy. This is my accountant. This is, you know what I mean?" And he had a whole crew around him. He goes, "I'm focused on building the automobile, right? I'm going to get this thing 4 wheels and how we're going to move it down the road for you. That's what I'm great at." And that's what he did, right? And he told his guys to continue to work on the assembly line and build a motor. And they kept giving him pushback, and he just kept asking them to build it. And eventually, guess what? They did, because they didn't give up, and he didn't allow them to give up. I think that's great, and it shows, the smartest business people, or the most successful, I should say, aren't always, 4.0s in school. A lot of times, your story is, I'm finding, somewhat more common, kind of having a dismantled upbringing where you need to wash it away almost and say, I'm starting from scratch and like rebuilding it to a way of allowing you to get to where you want to go, instead of being coddled into safety.
Yeah, I mean, if you can look at success as a process, don't focus on the outcome itself. It's okay to look at the outcome, but don't get caught up in the outcome itself. Now you're caught up in expectations go unfulfilled. That leads to codependency. Focus on the process, interdependency, own your responsibility and accountability for your role, trust the process, trust that the things that you can't control will work its way out to complement what you're doing. And the results that you seek are a byproduct of what you do every day in the present moment in that process. Plain and simple.
That is awesome. Thank you again for your time here, guys. You can check out Chris at Salem, SALEM.com. He's involved with so many great initiatives. Go there and they can link up with you on LinkedIn, Christopher Salem. Anything else you'd like to add before you run?
Well, I would just say I want to thank you, Mike, for having me to share this information with your audience. And again, I'm wishing everybody listening here much success in 2020. Let this year be the start of the decade. That's going to be one that you're going to fulfill all your dreams and aspirations. But the only missing piece to this equation is you. So make it about you. Be the example for others to find within themselves to do it. The same thing that you did for yourself.
I think we just experienced our first mic drop on Mic'd Up. I love it, man. That was so much fun for me. And look at this.
Wow, Jesus. You're a great note taker. I love it.
I don't know about great. I mean, there's a lot of madness going on there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. You have a friend up here in Buffalo. Where's home for you? I know you travel.
I'm not far. Well, I'm about maybe less than 6 hours from where you are. I'm in Connecticut, so I'm on the New York State line, just about an hour north of New York City. So yeah, you're just literally a 2 hour, not even 2 hours up to DeConic, and maybe 3.5, 4 hours on 90 West to get to Buffalo.
90 West is the way. We're going to wrap this thing up. Thank you again for being here, man.
Absolutely.
Hey, guys, I want to thank you all for tuning in and staying tuned in until the end. I like to give a recap here every week, and I customize it to the recap from my guest. I have about 3 pages of notes from Chris, so I'm not going to read every single note I took down here today, but my biggest takeaway was this, and I quote Chris: "Your success is an inside job." And that resonates with me because I know that at the end of the day, I can have all the info, read all the books, take all the notes. I can load up on all the online courses, have world-class mentors, guests on the show speaking wisdom directly at us. And at the end of the day, I need to make it happen. Nobody can or will do it for me, and nobody can or will do it for you either. Make it happen. And I'm personally utilizing the quarantine as a time to reset, reflect, and refocus on my why. I'm doing my part, hibernating like a groundhog over here, working from home. I'm blessed though. I've been able to do that really for 2 years. I've been working from home with my digital marketing company called Social Chameleon, and now I'm 22 episodes in on Mic'd Up, and I'm able to do that from home. So I'm blessed to do that, but I'm not lying here. I'm getting stir crazy myself. I like to get out, spend time with people, network, shake hands, get a cup of coffee, lunch and dinner, meet a new friend. So I'm getting a little stir crazy being at home. Like all of you. So we're in this thing together. Thankfully, Zoom and other online platforms allow us to continue this podcast and do these interviews virtually, bringing the guests for you each week and doing that through the online platform. So again, I cannot state this enough. I appreciate each person who tunes in and gives the show your attention. Attention is the number one premium. We all have 147 streams of info coming at us all day long, even when we're sleeping. Emails coming in, notifications going off, messages, updates, you name it. And for you to give me that love during this time, that means the world to me. I'm doing this show for you and also for me because I love learning from my guests, and I get fulfillment knowing that you are receiving value from tuning in. I'm wishing you all well. Guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay home. Be smart. Please, let's minimize the damage here. This is an opportunity, as I mentioned, to reset, reflect, and refocus. Take the time to do that. Spend that quality time, quality keyword here, with your family. Be present with them. Put your phone away. Play a family game night, whatever is fun for you and your family, and be present while you're with them. Just a reminder that I'm reminding myself to do, and I'm passing that along to you because I know it feels so great after having some fun with family, and it was a worthwhile moment, something you guys will remember forever. And don't be afraid to tell people you care about them, and obviously that you love them. So I had a crazy situation here. Really, words aren't going to be able to sum this up, so I'm just going to share what happened. But a friend of mine lost her husband this week, and they actually both lost their teenage daughter last year, and I believe she was 18 or 19 years old. And again, words aren't going to be able to explain how devastating that is. But now she lost her husband as well, and moments like that just kind of stop me in my tracks. I go right to gratitude right away, right to prayer, and just everything that I do have, I get immediately in a state of gratitude and don't take anything for granted. And I'm just saying that hit me today. I'm passing it along to you so you guys can, right now, you can, after you're done listening to this, stop and think of the things you're grateful for. Pick up the phone, call a family member when you're with your family today. Don't be afraid to tell them you love them. It's not corny, it's not cheesy. People will appreciate it. If they truly love you, it's going to hit them and they're going to feel good hearing it. So that's my little soapbox moment. Guys, I'm not on here trying to scare people as well. I know there's a lot of people talking about coronavirus, COVID-19. There's so much fear going on here. I'm not trying to say because of coronavirus, you need to act like, the world's coming to an end or anything crazy like that. It's the opposite. I want you guys to live fulfilled. I want you to take this crazy crisis that we're in. As I'm recording this episode right now, we're about 10 to 14 days into the quarantine, the lockdown, whatever you want to call it. I want you guys to punch back. And what does that mean? Well, to me, it means getting crafty, get creative. Think about how you can make the world a better place. Stop being a bystander and start doing something with your life, your time, your talents. Put it to great use. The world is depending on you. We need you to be you, the best version of you. Keep that in mind, whatever that might be. My thoughts and prayers are going out to everyone right now to find peace and not let fear overtake your comfort, both mentally and spiritually. I love you guys, and all I ask is a small favor in return. Thank you for tuning in, as I mentioned, but simply do this for me. If you can go on, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts right now, I know it's easy to leave a review there. If you're on social media, drop me a comment, send me a message. Seeing a cool message like that just makes me know that it connected on the other end as well. So taking the time and energy daily to put out content to serve is great, but when I know it's actually being received, that's what lights me up and just energizes me. That's my mission, to leave the world better than I found it, right? So again, let's be social on social media. Let's connect. I'm most active on IG, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So my handle on IG is at Mike DiCioccio. It's MikeDiCioccio. Shoot me an invite and I'll be happy to connect. As long as you guys have a respectable avatar and you're not a bot, I'll connect with you. And let's be active while we're doing that. Engage on the posts. I'll help you guys out with sharing your cool content as well. You can find more info on my show and about my guests at mikeduppodcast.com. It's MIKED uppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You guys know what to do. Aside from staying safe and staying inside, this is what I need you to do. Be great and be grateful.